Listen, when you're a mid-level bureaucrat on the Galactic Council's sanitation department, the last thing you expect is to fall head over tentacles for a human princess. But here I am, Qrix Vortanian, Senior Waste Management Coordinator for Sector 7, completely smitten with the most dangerous creature in the known universe. Oh, you heard me right. Dangerous. You see, humans have this reputation across the galaxy. They're the ones who look at a Category 5 death world and say, "Hey, this looks like a nice place for a picnic." They're the species that figured out how to make friends with creatures that could literally eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most civilized beings run screaming when they see a human coming. Me? I apparently run toward them with flowers and poetry. It all started 3 cycles ago when Princess Aria Blackstone arrived at the orbital station for the annual peace negotiations. Now I should mention that my species, the Zephyrians, have what you might call enhanced hearing. We can pick up conversations from 17 decks away if we really concentrate. It's supposed to be used for surveillance and security purposes, but let's be honest, mostly we use it for gossip. So there I was, minding my own business, recalibrating the atmospheric processors on level 42, when I heard this voice. Sweet entropy. What a voice. It was like liquid starlight, mixed with the sound of solar winds through nebula clouds. I dropped my plasma wrench right on my secondary foot, which hurt like blazes, but I barely noticed, because I was too busy trying to figure out where that angelic sound was coming from. The waste management systems on this station are actually quite impressive, the voice was saying. I've been studying the efficiency reports, and whoever designed the recycling protocols clearly knows their stuff. Now in 300 years of existence, nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever complimented our waste management systems. Most species pretend we don't exist, which is fine by me because dealing with their trash is bad enough without having to make small talk about it. I followed the voice through the ventilation shafts, which is perfectly normal behavior for a Zephyrian. Thank you very much. We're built for crawling through tight spaces. It's not creepy when we do it. That's when I saw her. Princess Aria Blackstone was nothing like the propaganda holos made her out to be. Sure, she was human, which meant she was terrifyingly capable of violence at any moment, but she was also beautiful. Not in the traditional sense that my species appreciates, mind you. Humans are all wrong by Zephyrian standards. They've got too few limbs, their skin changes color for no apparent reason, and don't even get me started on those weird hair follicles. But there was something about the way she moved through the station corridors, completely unafraid, commenting on technical specifications like she actually understood them. Most diplomatic visitors barely glance at the infrastructure. They're too busy being important and demanding better quarters. The thermal regulation in Section 12 could use some tweaking, she was telling her security detail, a mountain of a human named Commander Rex Steele. If they adjusted the flow rates by approximately 3.7%, they could improve energy efficiency by 12%. I nearly fell out of the ventilation shaft. She was right. I'd been trying to solve that exact problem for months, and this human princess had figured it out in what? 5 minutes of walking around. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Over the next few days I found myself accidentally running into Princess Aria at every opportunity. The station's not that big, and with my hearing, it wasn't hard to figure out where she'd be going next. I'd show up with my maintenance tools, pretending to work on whatever system was nearby, just to catch a glimpse of her. She had this habit of stopping to examine everything, not in a suspicious way, like most security-conscious diplomats, but with genuine curiosity. She'd run her fingers along the wall panels, checking the joints. She'd peer into maintenance hatches and nod approvingly at the cable management. She even complimented the color coding system for the waste disposal chutes, which between you and me, I designed myself. "Excuse me," she said one day, and I nearly jumped out of my exoskeleton because she was talking directly to me. "You're Qrix Vortanian, aren't you? Senior Waste Management Coordinator." I may have made a sound that resembled a deflating airbag. Yes, Your Highness. That's me." She smiled, and sweet cosmic radiation, I thought I was going to faint. "I've been reading your efficiency reports. Your work on the organic matter processing systems is brilliant. The way you've integrated the bacterial cultures with the atmospheric scrubbers is genuinely innovative. Nobody talks to sanitation workers like that." Nobody even talks to sanitation workers, period. We're invisible. We keep the galaxy running, but we might as well be ghosts for all the recognition we get. Thank you, Your Highness. I managed to squeak out. That's very kind of you to say. Aria, she said. Just Aria. And it's not kind, it's accurate. I'm studying engineering applications across different species technologies. Your biointegration methods could revolutionize waste processing throughout human space. That's when I knew I was completely doomed. The next few days were a blur of increasingly pathetic attempts to impress her. I showed her the zero-gravity composting systems. I explained the complex chemical processes we use to break down exotic matter. I even gave her a tour of the recycling facility, which sounds about as romantic as a plasma burn, but she was fascinated by every detail. Most species just see waste as something to get rid of, she said, watching the automated sorting systems separate different types of debris. But you've turned it into an art form. This isn't just disposal, it's transformation. I was pretty sure I was glowing at that point. Literally glowing. Zephyrians do that when we're extremely happy, or about to explode. Hopefully it was the happy thing. The problem was, I wasn't the only one who'd noticed Princess Aria's remarkable qualities. Half the diplomatic staff was falling over themselves to get her attention. Ambassador Kronos from the Rigelian Syndicate kept sending her exotic flowers that tried to eat anyone who got too close. Trade Minister Vex from the Centauri Republic had offered her an entire moon as a goodwill gesture. Even Captain Zorb from the Andromedan fleet was strutting around in his best ceremonial armor, which, trust me, was not an improvement. But none of them seemed to understand what made her special. They saw a human princess and immediately assumed she wanted power, wealth, or territory. They had no idea that she'd spent 3 hours yesterday helping me recalibrate the atmospheric processors just because she was curious about how they worked. That's when I overheard the conversation that changed everything. I was performing routine maintenance on the air recycling systems near the diplomatic quarters, definitely not eavesdropping, when I heard voices from Princess Aria's suite. Her security detail was discussing the various marriage proposals she'd been receiving. The Rigelian ambassador is offering a trade alliance and a fleet of warships, Commander Steele was saying. The Centauri minister has upped his offer to 3 moons and a mining operation, and the Andromedan captain is throwing in military protection for all human colonies in the Outer Rim. They're all very generous, Princess Aria replied. But her voice sounded tired, and completely missing the point. What point is that, Your Highness? Asked another voice. Probably one of her advisors. They're treating this like a business transaction, like I'm some kind of resource to be acquired rather than a person with actual interests and preferences. None of them have even bothered to ask what I might want in a partner. And what would that be? Commander Steele asked with the kind of gentle tone that suggested he'd been her friend long before he became her protector. There was a long pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft, almost wistful. Someone who sees the beauty in the details. Someone who understands that the small things matter just as much as the grand gestures. Someone who cares about making things work better, not just making them bigger or more powerful. My hearts, all 3 of them, stopped beating for approximately 4 seconds, which is actually kind of dangerous for a Zephyrian. But I was too busy having what humans call an emotional crisis to worry about minor things like oxygen circulation. She was describing me. Well, she was describing the kind of person I tried to be, anyway. But the chances of a human princess actually considering a relationship with a waste management coordinator from a species most people couldn't even pronounce correctly were approximately 0.001%. Still, a guy could dream, right? That evening, I found myself standing on the observation deck, staring out at the swirling colors of the Helix Nebula, and feeling sorry for myself. The station was quiet, except for the usual hum of life support systems and the distant sound of diplomatic parties that I definitely wasn't invited to. Beautiful view, a familiar voice said behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Princess Aria was standing there in a simple blue dress that somehow made her look even more stunning than her formal diplomatic attire. Your Highness, I squeaked, trying to bow and accidentally banging my head on a low-hanging sensor array. I mean, Aria, I didn't expect to see you here. She walked over to stand beside me at the viewing window. I needed some air. All those diplomatic receptions get a bit overwhelming after a while. I can imagine. I said, even though I really couldn't. The closest I'd ever come to a diplomatic reception was cleaning up after one. We stood there in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the nebula shift and dance. Finally she spoke again. Qrix, can I ask you something? Of course. What do you see when you look out there? I considered the question seriously. Most people would probably say something poetic about the vastness of space or the beauty of the cosmos. But she'd asked me, specifically, and I had a feeling she wanted an honest answer. I see a closed system, I said finally. Everything out there, all that matter and energy, it's all recycling itself over and over again. Stars die and become nebulae. Nebulae condense into new stars. Nothing's ever really wasted. It's just transformed into something else. It's the biggest waste management system in the universe, and it's been running perfectly for billions of years. She turned to look at me, and there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read. That's exactly what I see too. My translator implant must have been malfunctioning, because for a moment there, it sounded like she was saying we had something in common. Most people think my job is about garbage, I continued, because apparently near-death experiences make me chatty. But it's really about transformation, taking things that seem worthless and finding ways to make them valuable again. It's about seeing potential where others see problems. Is that why you became a waste management coordinator? I laughed, which sounds like a steam valve releasing pressure when Zephyrians do it. Actually, it was kind of an accident. I started out in atmospheric engineering, but I kept getting distracted by efficiency problems in other systems. Eventually, I realized that waste management touches every part of a space station's operations. If you want to understand how something really works, follow the garbage. She was quiet for a long moment, and I started to worry that I'd said something wrong. Talking about garbage probably wasn't appropriate conversation for a princess. But then she smiled again, and I felt like I'd been hit by a solar flare in the best possible way. You know what I love about that, she said. It's honest. Most people in my position spend their whole lives dealing with things that are supposed to be important, but don't actually matter. Trade agreements that everyone knows will be renegotiated in 5 years. Ceremonial positions that exist purely for show, but what you do, that actually keeps people alive. I never thought about it that way, I admitted. I do, she said. I think about it a lot, actually. How many people are doing jobs that really matter, versus jobs that just seem impressive? And I think, she paused, looking back out at the nebula, I think I'd rather spend my time with someone who makes things work than someone who just makes things look important. That's when I said it. I didn't mean to, I swear. The words just fell out of my vocal chamber before my brain could stop them. I wish I could marry her, I whispered. The silence that followed my accidental confession lasted approximately forever. Or maybe it was just 3 seconds. But when you've just told the universe that you want to marry a human princess, while said princess is standing right next to you, 3 seconds feels like geological time. I was preparing to spontaneously combust from embarrassment when Princess Aria turned to face me completely. Her expression was unreadable, which in human terms could mean anything from mild curiosity to preparing to vaporize me with one of those terrifying human weapons they're always talking about. My answer is yes, she said. Now I'm not a medical expert, but I'm pretty sure Zephyrian hearts aren't supposed to stop beating and then restart at triple speed within the span of 4 seconds. I may have made a sound like a malfunctioning air compressor. I'm sorry, what? I managed to wheeze out. She smiled that devastating smile again. You said you wished you could marry me. I said yes. But you're a princess, and I'm a garbage coordinator. Senior waste management coordinator, she corrected with mock seriousness. Let's not undersell your achievements. I stared at her, trying to process what was happening. This had to be some kind of diplomatic joke. Or maybe humans had a tradition of humoring the pathetic romantic delusions of alien janitors. You can't be serious. Qrix, she said, stepping closer, which made my exoskeleton tingle in ways that probably weren't entirely healthy. Do you know what I've been doing for the past week? Attending diplomatic meetings, and being incredibly impressive. She laughed, and the sound was like solar chimes in a gentle asteroid shower. I've been trying to figure out how to ask you out without causing a galactic incident. My brain performed what humans might call a blue screen of death. You, what? Think about it, she said, settling against the viewing window like this was the most natural conversation in the universe. I'm supposed to be here evaluating marriage proposals from various galactic powers. Instead, I've spent most of my time following around a Zephyrian engineer, asking him about waste processing systems, and pretending I'm not completely fascinated by everything he says. That's just professional interest, I protested weakly. Professional interest doesn't explain why I've memorized your work schedule, she replied, or why I keep finding excuses to walk past the waste management sections, or why I asked my security detail to compile a complete background report on you, which, by the way, was very interesting reading. Oh no, I groaned. What did they find? Well, let's see, she said, ticking off points on her fingers. Top of your class at the Zephyrian Technical Institute. 3 commendations for innovative system design. Published 17 papers on sustainable resource management. Volunteer coordinator for the Orphaned Hatchling Relief Fund. And according to your personnel file, you once stayed on duty for 48 straight hours to prevent a catastrophic waste backup that could have killed everyone on Research Station Omega. That was just doing my job, I mumbled. Heroes always say that, she said softly. I was starting to think this conversation was some kind of elaborate hallucination brought on by too much exposure to recycled atmosphere. Aria, I don't understand. You could marry anyone in the galaxy. Literally anyone. Why would you want to be with someone like me? She was quiet for a moment, looking back out at the nebula. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. Do you know what it's like being a human princess in galactic politics? Terrifying for everyone involved. That earned me another laugh. Close. It means everyone wants something from you, but nobody wants to know you. The Rigelian ambassador sees a military alliance. The Centauri minister sees trade opportunities. The Andromedan captain sees a trophy wife who'll make him look more civilized. That sounds awful. It is, she said. But then I met this Zephyrian engineer, who showed me around his waste processing facility, like it was the most important place in the universe, who explained bacterial cultures with the same passion that most people reserve for art or music, who built systems so elegant and efficient that they're basically poetry made functional. You're making me sound way more impressive than I actually am. Am I? She turned to look at me again. Qrix, do you know what I see when I look at you? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. I see someone who cares about making things better, not just making himself look important. Someone who finds beauty in the details that everyone else ignores. Someone who dedicated his life to keeping people safe and healthy, even though nobody thanks him for it. She paused. I see someone who's exactly the kind of person I've been hoping to find my entire life. But the other suitors, I protested. They can offer you armies, planets, trade agreements. I can offer you really efficient garbage disposal. The most advanced garbage disposal in the galaxy, she corrected. But that's not why I'm interested. Then why? She stepped closer again, close enough that I could smell her perfume, which smelled like earth flowers and ozone. Because when you look at me, you don't see Princess Aria Blackstone, future queen of the Terran Federation, valuable political asset. You see, me, just me. Well, yes, but no buts, she said firmly. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How long it's been since someone talked to me about something they were passionate about instead of something they wanted from me? I was starting to understand, but it still seemed impossible. Your family will never approve. Your government will never allow it. The galactic community will think you've lost your mind. Probably, she agreed cheerfully. And honestly, I couldn't care less. But, she held up a hand to stop my protests. Qrix, let me tell you something about humans that most aliens don't understand. We're not just dangerous because we're violent or unpredictable. We're dangerous because when we decide we want something, really want it, we don't let little things like logic or social conventions or political impossibility stop us. That's actually terrifying. It should be, because I've decided I want you. I may have made a noise like a deflating balloon. This is insane. Completely, she agreed. And it's going to cause the biggest diplomatic crisis since the vegan cheese wars of 2387. The council is going to have collective apoplexy. My father is probably going to declare you a threat to galactic security. And every gossip network in known space is going to have a field day with the story of the human princess who fell for the alien janitor. You're really not selling this well, I pointed out. I'm not trying to sell it, she said. I'm trying to warn you what you're getting into if you say yes. If I say yes to what? She pulled something out of her pocket. It was small, round and glittering with an inner light I'd never seen before. A ring, I realized. Ah. A human engagement ring. Qrix Vortanian, she said, dropping to one knee right there on the observation deck. Will you marry me? Ah. Stared at her. My brain completely offline. You're proposing to me. Human tradition, she said, with a grin. Though I suppose I should ask, what's the Zephyrian tradition for marriage proposals? Usually involves a complex dance and the presentation of a perfectly balanced chemical equation, I said faintly. Well, I can't dance worth a damn, but I did work out the molecular formula for optimizing your bacterial culture efficiency, she said, pulling out a data pad with the other hand. Will that do? I looked at the formula. It was perfect. More than perfect, it was elegant in a way that made my professional soul sing with joy. She'd found a solution I'd been searching for months. This is brilliant, I breathed. Is that a yes? I looked at her, kneeling there on the deck of a space station, proposing marriage with a ring in one hand and an engineering solution in the other, completely ignoring the fact that she was about to cause the biggest scandal in galactic history. Yes, I said. Sweet entropy. Yes. She slipped the ring onto my primary manipulator appendage, where it fit perfectly despite the obvious species compatibility issues. I had it specially designed, she explained. The band adjusts to accommodate different appendage configurations, and the stone is actually a miniaturized quantum processor that can interface with Zephyrian bio-neural networks. You designed a ring that's compatible with my nervous system? I told you I'd been doing research. That's when the first explosion happened. We both turned toward the sound, which had come from the direction of the diplomatic quarters. Alarms started blaring. Emergency lights began flashing, and my personal communicator started screaming with Priority 1 alerts. What's happening? Aria asked, immediately shifting into what I was starting to recognize as her crisis management mode. I checked my emergency readouts. Hull breach in Section 12. Atmospheric containment, failing in Sections 10 through 15. And I paused, running the data again because it couldn't be right. Someone sabotaged the waste processing systems. They what? The bacterial cultures are dying. The atmospheric scrubbers are offline. The recycling systems are backing up. I was already moving toward the nearest maintenance access. Aria right behind me. If we don't fix this in the next 20 minutes, everyone on this station is going to suffocate in their own waste products. How romantic, she said dryly. Our engagement party comes with a side of mortal peril. This isn't a coincidence, I realized as we ran through the corridors. Someone doesn't want you making any unexpected marriage choices. Probably several someones, she agreed. The question is, can you fix it? I ducked into a maintenance shaft. Aria somehow managing to keep up despite her obvious unfamiliarity with the station's service tunnels. Maybe. But I'm going to need help. The kind of help that requires someone with diplomatic clearance to authorize emergency protocols. Done, she said immediately. What else? I need you to contact Commander Steele and have him lock down all the diplomatic quarters. Whoever did this is probably planning to use the chaos as cover for something else. Also done. Anything else? I paused at a junction, checking my readings. The damage was worse than I'd thought. Someone had introduced a targeted virus into the bacterial cultures, something designed specifically to kill the strains we used for waste processing. This wasn't random sabotage. This was biological warfare. Yeah, I said grimly. I need you to prepare for the possibility that we're about to die horribly. Noted, she said with disturbing calm. But just so we're clear, if we do survive this, I'm holding you to that engagement. Despite everything, I found myself laughing. Princess, if we survive this, I'll marry you tomorrow. Deal, she said. Now show me how to save a space station. And that's how I found myself in the strangest situation of my long and eventful life, racing through maintenance tunnels with a human princess, trying to prevent a diplomatic disaster while simultaneously planning a wedding that was probably going to start 3 different wars. Just another day in waste management. Really, the question was, could we save the station, stop whoever was behind the sabotage, and convince the galaxy that a princess and a garbage coordinator could actually make it work? Well, we were about to find out.